Hey there, welcome in. My name is Mike DeJohn, and this is Soundstage EDU. This show exists for the people behind the programs. The parents, the directors, the volunteers, the ones carrying things that most people never see. We talk about the real stuff here. Booster culture, leadership, burnout, governance, and what it actually takes to build something that lasts for the kids. So if you're in it, you're in the right place. But before we jump in, just a couple of quick things. If this show has helped you, even once, follow it, save it, come back to it. There are a lot of episodes here, and chances are something you're dealing with right now, we've probably already talked about it. And if you know someone else in your program, another parent, board member, or director who's in the middle of it with you, share this with them. Because these conversations, well, they hit different when you're not the only one hearing them. All right. Let's get into it. I came across a post this week that stopped me in the middle of scrolling. A band director was sharing a conversation that they'd had with a leadership expert, as they referred to them as the band leadership expert. And he was talking about recruiting students, retaining students, building leadership teams, and growing programs. All the things that, as this particular director said, kept him awake at night. And in the middle of that conversation, the leadership expert looked at him and said, even Jesus only kept 11 of the 12. Now, whether you're a person of faith or not, that statement, that's a statement that makes you stop for a moment and really think. Because there's a truth hiding inside of it. And it's a truth that I think applies to directors and booster leaders, to teachers, administrators, parent volunteers, to literally anyone who's ever tried to lead another human being. You see, we spend an incredible amount of time trying to keep everybody. You know, we want to keep everybody engaged. We want to keep them happy. We want to keep them committed, involved. And we want to keep everybody moving in the same direction. And when someone leaves, when someone quits or steps away or just disengages, we often have a tendency to treat that like a personal failure if you're in that leadership role that oversees them. We immediately begin searching for what it is that we may have done wrong. What could I have said differently? What could I have done differently? How could I have convinced them to stay? How could have I prevented this? And while self-reflection is important, I think there's a dangerous assumption hiding underneath all of those questions. And that assumption is that every departure is somehow a failure. And personally, I don't think that's true, even though I've wrestled with the same questions in my own mind and in my own situations. In fact, I think believing that particular line of questioning can be incredibly destructive. Because once leaders begin believing that every departure represents failure, they begin making decisions from fear. They stop holding standards because they're afraid people will leave. They stop having the difficult conversations because they're afraid people will leave. Which leads to a stoppage of enforcing expectations and changing unhealthy traditions because they're afraid people will leave. They stop correcting poor behavior because they're afraid people will leave. And eventually, they stop leading. And they start negotiating. And those are two pretty different things. Because leadership is about guiding people toward a mission. And negotiation is often about trying to keep everyone comfortable. And they're just not the same. And somewhere along the way, I think many organizations and many leaders confuse the two. One of the things that we talk about often inside of the Culture Lab is that people frequently confuse healthy culture with universal approval. In fact, I mean, universal approval and healthy culture are not the same. Healthy cultures often create friction. And that statement often surprises people. Because we want to believe that healthy culture means everyone gets along, that everyone agrees, everyone's happy and unified. But culture is not the absence of conflict. Culture is the presence of shared values. It's a group of people agreeing that certain behaviors matter, certain standards matter, certain beliefs matter, certain ways of treating each other matter. And the moment you define those things, well, someone won't like them. And it's not because there's anything wrong or that they're difficult or that those people are necessarily bad people, but it's simply because not everyone values the same things. We're all different. The moment an organization says we value accountability, guess what? Someone will resist that accountability. Same thing with transparency. The moment you say we value transparency, someone will become uncomfortable with it. The moment you say we value consistency, someone who benefited from inconsistency may become frustrated. And certainly the moment an organization says we're going to do things differently, and I know a lot of you are walking through that right now, someone who preferred the old way will object. We've always done it this way. And listen, that doesn't automatically mean that your culture is unhealthy. Sometimes it means quite the opposite. It means that the culture is becoming healthier. And healthy culture often reveals misalignment. This is something that I see constantly in booster organizations of all sizes and all experience levels. A board decides financial reports will be shared openly, and someone gets upset. A board decides that elections will be conducted according to the bylaws. Someone gets upset. A board decides to treat volunteers consistently, and someone gets upset. Someone on the board decides that policies matter, and someone gets upset. And immediately, as soon as those things start to happen, the board starts questioning itself. You know, maybe we made the wrong decision. Maybe we're creating division. Maybe we're causing problems. Maybe we're actually driving people away. Maybe it's us. Maybe. But maybe not. Sometimes people will leave because they disagree with the direction. Sometimes the culture changed. Sometimes they leave because they no longer receive the benefits that they once enjoyed. Sometimes it's because priorities or life changed, or just their season in leadership is over. And sometimes, hear me out, people leave for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with you. Not every departure is a referendum on your leadership. And this is especially important right now because many programs are entering student leadership season. Some students are stepping into leadership roles. Others are stepping away. Some students were selected. Others were not. Some students are excited. Others are disappointed. And directors often carry a tremendous amount of emotional weight during these transitions because they care deeply. Good directors care deeply. But caring deeply can sometimes create an unrealistic burden. The burden of believing that if you were a better leader, then nobody would leave. Nobody would quit. Nobody would be disappointed. Nobody would disengage. Nobody would walk away. But that's not reality. People leave healthy organizations every day. And people leave unhealthy organizations every day. People will leave championship ensembles, and people will leave struggling ensembles. We see this everywhere. People leave great jobs. People leave great schools. People leave great teams. Departure alone tells us almost nothing. And yet, we often treat it as the ultimate scorecard. Maybe, as leaders, we're asking the wrong questions. Many leaders will ask, why did they leave? And honestly, that's not a bad question. Sometimes it's a very important question. Sometimes we need to know. But I think there's another question that may be even more valuable in these situations. And that's this. Why did the others stay? Think about that for a moment. When someone leaves, we often spend hours analyzing one departure. Meanwhile, dozens of people continue showing up. They continue believing. They continue contributing, growing, investing. And we barely notice that. Instead, we become obsessed with the person who left, instead of learning from the people who stayed. Because culture isn't revealed only through departures. Culture is revealed through commitment. Why do students continue showing up? Why do volunteers continue to help? Why do the parents continue to support? Why do the other leaders continue to serve? And why do the staff members continue believing in the group? Those answers will tell you far more about your culture than a single exit ever will. Culture builders study commitment, not just attrition. And this is where I think Dr. Mario Acosta's framework of Guardians, Sentinels, Scouts, and Sprouts. Because every departure activates a different lens. Every single one. A Guardian is going to ask, what tradition are we losing? The Sentinel is going to ask, what warning sign did we miss? And the Scout's going to ask, what opportunity does this create? And then the Eager Sprout's going to ask, who gets a chance to grow now? And all four of those questions matter. All of those perspectives provide value in this situation. Healthy cultures create space for all four of those voices, whereas the unhealthy cultures become trapped inside of only one of those. Some organizations become so guardian heavy that every departure feels like a tragedy. Every change feels like a loss. Every transition feels like decline. And then other groups become so sentinel heavy that every departure feels like evidence of failure. Someone left. Who messed up? What broke? Who's responsible? Others will become so scout heavy that they rush forward without learning anything. And some become so sprout focused that they overlook legitimate concerns. Healthy cultures need balance. Healthy cultures acknowledge loss. They investigate warning signs and they look for opportunity and create room for growth, all at the same time. But the second lesson from that original story may actually be the most important. The leadership expert told the director to publicly recognize what students were doing right. And honestly, I think that's a message that every leader needs to hear, including myself. Because most organizations have become incredibly efficient at finding problems. Like I said, I am a sentinel. I am a problem magnet. I see the problems instantly when I walk into a room. I mean, I can identify mistakes almost instantly in any situation that I'm in. Some would say it's a blessing. Sometimes I say it's a curse. Being a sentinel is hard. But in these positions, we can identify mistakes almost instantly. Wrong note, wrong uniform, wrong email, wrong process, wrong behavior, wrong decision, wrong timing, wrong volunteer, wrong board member, wrong student, wrong parent, wrong everything. All of us, and all four of those voices, are incredibly well trained to spot what's broken. But excellence, effort, growth, character, consistency, I mean, often those go unnoticed. And it's not because the leader is blind to it. It's not because they don't care about it, but because leaders become so consumed by fixing everything. And eventually, all attention flows toward problems. So think about your last rehearsal. Think about your last board meeting. Think about your last volunteer event. How much of your attention went towards correcting mistakes? Now ask yourself, how much attention went towards celebrating success? Because whatever gets recognized gets repeated. I want you to hold on to that. Take that statement, push it deep into your head. Because whatever gets recognized gets repeated. People move toward what receives attention. Culture will grow where attention flows. If all of your attention goes toward problems, people begin to believe that problems are all that matter. Whereas if excellence receives attention, excellence begins multiplying. The best leaders I've ever known weren't blind to problems. They simply refused to let problems monopolize their attention. I see this a lot in where I work in my professional job. I work for a founder that will repeatedly say they will not let a problem hold them down. They will not let it rule their life. They'll acknowledge it, they'll process it, and then they move on. Because there's not enough energy to sit there and focus on the negativity or the problem when they can just move forward and fix what's in front of them right now and lead from there. So when they see a problem, they correct it privately and they celebrate the wins publicly. Over time, that changed everything. So maybe the real takeaway today is that not everyone is supposed to stay. Not every student will become a section leader. Not every parent will become a volunteer. Not every board member will complete their term. And not every family will remain in your program. Because things change all the time. Families move. Families get new opportunities and go elsewhere. Sometimes a board member just gets too tired and they have to back out for their mental health, and you need to let them do that. Not every employee will stay forever, for those of you leading corporate teams and work teams. Sometimes they too find better opportunities and move on. Sometimes it's too much for them to bear and they move on, and you let them. Not every relationship that you have will continue indefinitely. Sometimes those fracture. And I need you to understand, from leader to leader, that is not leadership failure. That's simply the reality that we live in as leaders. People enter our lives. People enter our organizations. People enter our programs. And sometimes their season simply ends. Especially in the booster space, the fine art space, we have an average 4-year cycle. You can't make them stay forever. Eventually, they will all leave. But the goal is to make their time there meaningful. The goal was to help them grow, to help them contribute, to leave them better than you found them. And maybe that's a scorecard we've been looking for all along. Not retention, not volunteer counts or participation percentages, not enrollment numbers, is the program growing? I mean, those things matter, but they're not the whole story. The real measure of leadership, and I want you guys to hang on to this, the real measure of leadership is whether people became better because you were there. Whether they learned, whether they grew, developed confidence, discovered purpose, whether they became capable of more than they believed possible. Because if that happened, then your leadership mattered, even if they left eventually. So if you, listening right now, are stepping into a new leadership season as a director, as a drum major, as a section leader, as a booster president, as a committee chair, as a parent volunteer walking into that band room for the first time, as a teacher, simply as a human being trying to help other human beings. Stop measuring yourself by people who leave. Because they're going to. Every day. That's reality. So start investing in who is there. Celebrate them loudly. Develop them intentionally. Recognize them often. And with those of you that are there, build something together worth staying for. And trust that the right people will keep showing up. Not because you convinced them, not because you manipulated them, and not because you lowered your standards just to keep them comfortable, but because they found value in what you are building. And in the end, that's what culture is all about. This has been Mike with Soundstage EDU. Let's raise the bar together. If anything in this episode resonated with you, please follow the show wherever you're listening. Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're at, follow the show. Leave us a review, share the show. I don't think people realize how much that actually helps this message get out there. And while you're at it, find us on Facebook, find us on TikTok, Soundstage EDU. Follow us there, join our groups, and engage in the conversations with us. Also, if you're a part of a booster board and there's something you're struggling with, go through the catalog here. I promise you, whatever it is you might be struggling with, we've probably already talked about. If not, send us a message. Send us an email at soundstageedu@gmail.com and let us know what you want us to address, and we'll get to it for you. But until then, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.